Here's a headline. This caught my eye. I will never vote Biden. Some Muslim Americans in a key swing state feel betrayed by the president. Yo, you don't say. As President Joe Biden declared unwavering support for Israel in the days after Hamas's terror attack in Israel, Ahmad Ramadan, a former Biden advisor now leading coalition efforts for the Michigan Democratic Party, called the state party chair to raise the alarm about what he was hearing. Michigan has one of the largest Muslim and Arab American populations in the country, and they say their support for Biden was instrumental to putting him over the top in the critical swing state in 2020. Obviously, Hillary lost Michigan in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. But now Ramadan and other Democratic leaders in the state were hearing nothing but frustration with Biden and threats to not vote for him again. In a series of more than a dozen roundtable discussions with Muslim community leaders in the 2 weeks since the October 7th attack by Hamas, Ramadan said the main takeaway is that, quote, people are very disappointed. They say they will not forget what President Biden did and why he lied to them, he added. President Biden won with historic numbers in 2020, and I was proud to represent that. But the last 2 weeks have really shifted things, Ramadan said. I've also been getting calls from people saying I have blood on my hands because I got people out to support him during that campaign. Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Those are strong words. Joe Biden has single-handedly alienated almost every Arab American and Muslim American voter in Michigan, said State Representative Al-Abbas Farhat. So this is a state representative, not a person on the street. This is a Democratic politician, a Democrat whose district includes Dearborn, which is home to one of the largest Muslim and Arab American communities in the country, not just in the state, but in the entire country. Farhat said he has constituents and neighbors who have family members trapped in Gaza, including some who are American citizens, and they feel completely abandoned by the U.S. government for not doing more to help them get out, get aid in, and pressure Israel for a ceasefire. The Biden administration and Democrats as a whole are going to have to do a lot of work to rebuild some level of trust with my community, he said. It's never too late to do the right thing. Later on, in rolling conversations in Michigan and beyond over the past 2 weeks, Muslim elected officials, activists, and community leaders have coalesced around a plan to mobilize their constituents to vote next year, but also to encourage them to leave the top of the ticket blank in protest, according to multiple people involved in the discussions. That's the plan right now, Farhat said. Again, this is a Democratic elected politician. That's the plan right now. I think there's going to be a lot of people that remember when you won Michigan years ago by a razor-thin margin, when you won Georgia with a razor-thin margin, when you won Arizona by a razor-thin margin. Do not be surprised if there are consequences for your actions. Very, very strong words from Democratic elected politicians in a state of Michigan where if Biden loses, that's it. It's over. You know, the thing about this is that, look, Biden, if he does win, wouldn't be the first time that a Democrat betrays core constituencies of their own party and wins anyway. Sure. The thing about this cycle, though, is Biden goes into this trailing in the polls to Trump, trailing in critical swing states to Trump. The last poll out of Michigan did have Trump up narrowly. Biden has no margin for error this year. It's not like the Democrats have room to falter this year. This is the kind of year where you're already going in with barely enough, if you have enough, barely enough to hang on. You cannot afford to be alienating Dearborn, Michigan right now. You cannot afford to betray another core group of voters. That could be a real difference maker. And the fact that you have elected leaders saying that actually the plan now in not only Michigan, but in Muslim areas around the country is to organize a protest vote, meaning vote for every other office, but leave the top of the ticket blank. That is not something to dismiss if you're odds making this cycle.
Also, there is nothing comparable among Jews regarding swing states. Jews tend to be concentrated so much in heavily blue states and districts that as a rule, they can't swing an election because where they're located, there are enough blue votes. Whereas
Right.
Muslims can because they have these concentrations in specific Midwestern districts that can actually impact the presidential race. So while there are less of them overall than there are Jews in America, those Jews are in New York and L.A.
Yeah.
They're in Dearborn. New York and L.A. are going Democrat no matter what. It doesn't matter.
Is it true that there are fewer Muslims than Jews in America? I didn't know that.
Yes, Jews. I think that's in that article actually.
Oh, okay.
That Jews make up about 2% of the electorate and Muslims make up about 1%.
Okay.
I believe that's what I read in there. I'm not absolutely positive. It was definitely less, though. They were definitely
Right.
represented less voters.
But yeah, I mean, this is, part of a larger story. Obviously, Rashida Tlaib, who represents that district that they were writing about, obviously came out and made a very impassioned case for a ceasefire. She is a Palestinian woman herself, and for all the shit we've rightfully given the squad, I've always given Tlaib credit for speaking on that issue because it's a matter of personal experience, right? And so, that's something that, look, it could very well cost them. It could very well cost them. Michigan is absolute must win for Joe Biden. If he loses Michigan, that's it. It is impossible to imagine a scenario where he loses Michigan but hangs on. And given that, look, there was a story in the New York Times. There's so much we could have covered this evening. We'll get to it more on Friday. There's a story in the New York Times. A social worker who makes $72,000 a year has to live in her car because she can't find housing she can afford on $70,000 a year.
Where is she living?
I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that you can't survive on that income. You can't find a roof over your head with that income. You're living in your fucking car. Like, that creates a scenario where an incumbent president, you have no margin for error. The economy is horrible, right? Your numbers, your fundamental numbers on all these core issues are horrible. You cannot afford to be alienating Muslims in Michigan and hang on and win. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and we're seeing a mass rebellion among people of color as well, which you were seeing before this, but much to their horror and surprise, black and brown people don't identify as much with the Israeli cause as they do with the Palestinian cause. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, no brainer, right? I mean, exactly.
Oh, they sympathize with the victims of the apartheid state and not the institutors of it. Wow, what a shocker.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, who could have possibly seen that one coming?
Please clap.